Hello, everybody. Thank you for joining us here today. My name is Fabiana Bacchini. I'm the Executive Director of the Canadian Premature Babies Foundation. As most of you know, since the beginning of the pandemic, Monday and Fridays, 1 p.m. Eastern Time, I've been hosting Facebook Live, bringing experts, healthcare professionals, and parents from all over Canada, and a few times from all over the world to share here with us their expertise, their research, and what is happening in their NICUs all over the world. And today we're going to talk about a very important topic. As most of you know, since the beginning of this pandemic, a lot of hospitals have changed their policies, and parents in many cases are not even allowed to go inside the hospital to stay with their babies. Here in Canada, we do have a different situation, but nevertheless, we still don't see parent engagement as we wish to see, as research has shown over the years. And to talk about this topic, and because we are launching a Zero Separation campaign this week, I have with me all the way from Munich, Germany, Silke Mader. She is the chairwoman of the Executive Board and co-founder of EFCNI. EFCNI is the European Foundation for the Care of the Newborn Infants. In 1997, her twins were born in the 25th week of pregnancy, and Silke and her family did not receive enough information and support she needed. Unfortunately, one of her twins died a few days after birth. During her time in hospital and afterwards, Silke was faced with the non-existence of support of any kind, the absence of public awareness, and the lack of information and education for parents during pregnancy. Her motivation is to prevent parents from having similar experiences in such painful situations, as the conditions throughout Europe are distressingly similar, and preterm children urgently need a voice within Europe and worldwide. She decided to take on the role of the chair on the Executive Board of EFCNI. Silke has also co-authored several research papers and received numerous awards for her remarkable work in Europe. Silke, what an honor to have you here. You are nothing but an inspiration to me and to many other leads of parent organizations all over the world. So thank you so much for joining us here today and taking the time out of your busy schedule to share with us this amazing campaign that is being created.
Hello, everybody, and thank you for inviting me. It's a pleasure to be with you today.
So over the years, EFCNI has gone beyond Europe, and many parent organizations from all over the world start to work together. And Silke, you certainly saw the need to create another organization to take on a much bigger role, task, and challenge to give every baby born too early, too sick, or too small the best start in life. And, you know, it was exactly a year ago that I had the honor to participate in the founding committee meeting of GLANCE in Munich. So why is GLANCE? What is so that important for all over the world to have this work done?
Yeah, thank you for the question. So what for us was important as a European organization and seeing really all over the world the burden of preterm birth, but also the parents and the preterm infants themselves have not the voice. We thought it is important to represent as a parent organization also on a global level. So I was attending several meetings at the World Health Organization, at UNICEF, or even at G7 preparation meetings. And I was always invited as a European representative, but there was nobody else really on a global level to be to discuss in the end the situation and be a spokesperson. So we founded in 2018, first of all as a working group, the GLANCE, the Global Alliance for Newborn Care, and we have in the meanwhile as EFCNI already more than 100 parent organizations around the globe. So the European was not really working anymore, and we saw that outside of Europe, because we are quite developed area in the world, outside of this area, many parents and preterm infants and even also healthcare professionals have not the voice as it is needed. And so therefore we said we have to establish an organization or an initiative first to represent this voice in research projects, in policy projects, and speaking up for them and with them so that we have have hopefully in the next 20-25 years in each region of the world a representative who can speak up for themselves.
That is incredible. So can I notice over like shy from 6 or 7 months since GLANCE was officially launched on World Prematurity Day last year, many countries have come together that we didn't even think about, having parent organization in those countries. And now you see many representatives from Africa, from Latin America, from Asia. And this is so beautiful to see this growing even virtually, because now we have meetings every other week to really see what's happening in different worlds and in different parts of the world. And I think that's what originated just such an important campaign that we are launching on Thursday, the Zero Separation campaign. So talk to us about why this campaign is so important and what is the goal for this campaign.
So the Zero Separation campaign, Together for Better Care, was founded because of, as you have mentioned, Fabiana, that we have every week a call with all the parent organizations around the globe. And we have recognized that this situation is really a challenge in the NICU, so in the neonatal intensive care units, but it's also a challenge in the normal hospitals. So giving birth in the time of COVID separates the parents from the baby, or separates, for example, the mother from the husband or from the partner. And so they are quite lonely. And so the challenge, what we have realized, is that it's also very different in the different countries. So there's a huge inequality of accepting parents in the units, being with their baby. All the milestones we have achieved in the last 20 years seemed really to be gone. So parents were again treated like visitors, or even were not allowed, and I don't know to say allowed, because we are the parents of this baby. So who gives us the right of access to our baby? So we said it can't be that all the work we have done in the last 20 years is gone, and parents are not allowed to be with their babies at all and be seen even less than a visitor. So we're totally excluded on the whole care situation. And we realized that there is a difference between countries. They haven't really made a change. So parents, both parents, fathers and mothers, are 24/7 have access to their babies, be involved in the caregiving situation like it was before the pandemic. And then we have countries where parents are totally separated. That means they have no access at all to their baby, and only get the picture or are allowed to call in the unit. So there is such a difference. And I have to say, in the majority of the countries in the world, there is a huge separation. They have sometimes access to 5 minutes, 10 or 15 minutes per day, and maybe often only the mother. And then that is not acceptable, because there is a lot of research out that separation harms and has a huge consequence for the baby's outcome, but also for the health of the parents.
Absolutely. And in our calls, we learned that some hospitals do have like a 15-minute time visit. That is the new policy, which is certainly not evidence-based. Why 15 minutes and not half an hour, not 24/7? And we understand the situation of PPE, the lack of PPE in so many countries. But on the other hand, as you mentioned, there are years and decades of research showing the impact for the baby and the outcomes when the parents are present in the care of the baby, and also for the parents in the terms of mental health and long-term impact for the parents as well as the baby. So what is the evidence that you know, Silke, that is available out there?
So for the COVID, for the pandemic, there is not so much evidence at the moment out what really influences in the health of the preterm baby or the parents. What we know is that there is not really a difference in if you get at a parent or a mother or father, or you are a nurse or a healthcare professional. So we also know that there was a lot of lack of equipment, so masks and gloves, and also a lot of anxiety was around. So the people were scared to get the COVID and then in the end that nurses and doctors get it and have to be in quarantine for a really long time. And there was, of course, a challenge not having enough human resources. But what we know in the meanwhile, and also have in the back the support from the World Health Organization, that when we separate the parents, especially the mother from the child, that means the separation has a consequence on the breastfeeding, for example. So we cannot see the separation only as a visiting policy. Separation from the baby and the mother and the whole family means that we have not access to kangaroo mother care, which means skin to skin care for the baby, where we know that this has a huge reduction of sepsis, of breastfeeding. It has finally, when we have not enough breast milk, it has then in the end an increase of the neck. So there are many, many aspects when we reduce in the end kangaroo mother care in the units, or even are not allowed to have this at all, means that we have a bad outcome later in life for all the children who are born now in the time of COVID. And the separation of the parents, especially of the mother, means we have not enough breast milk. We have also not enough human milk. So also donation of human milk is going down. And we know that the outcome is really a challenge. And that is only for the baby. So when we go to the family and again to the mother, we know very well that separation of the baby has a challenge with the bonding aspects later. So we know that this has a bad health outcome for the mother when we separate them. And we also have mental health problems for the mother, and also for the fathers. We have data that this stress factors really increases the mental health challenges later in life, even to adulthood.
Absolutely. This is, and it's so well, the evidence is there, it's so well reported, and I don't think we should not take that into consideration at this time. And how can we work around that? So we do have a question here coming from the Netherlands. Juliet said hi, and also Monica from Italy said hi. So the question is, what would you suggest to do differently in your own country or globally during COVID-19 that parents can see their newborn infants who are born too soon, too small, or too ill?
Yeah, what we can really recommend is, and also we have to take into account that healthcare professionals also struggle in this situation. So we would really stress here on and strongly mention that we don't want to put here someone the finger on their fault, for example. We really see the challenges for healthcare professionals in this situation. But what we think is important for governments or for hospital administrations to provide in the end the equipment that parents can be with their baby, or even organize it that parents can bring their own mask or gloves with them so that parents have access. Because this is something where we really struggle to see that they are totally separated, and even not alternative solutions are provided. And so therefore we strongly recommend that each healthcare professional society and each national parent organization together develop statements what in this country should be taken into account, because we know we have rich countries like my own country in Germany, where we have a 24/7 policy in the neonatal units. But on the other side, we have in the delivery rooms for normal babies, often in the hospitals, the cases that fathers are not allowed to be in the delivery situation, or even not afterwards can visit their own baby. So this is really something where we have such an inequality in one hospital. Even in the delivery room on a normal baby, we have not the permission that the father is with them. On the other side, in the same hospital, in an NICU, the parents are 24/7 allowed to be there. So it is so unfair and so different taken, and we have not really a guidance in this situation from big organization. We have the recommendation from the World Health Organization, but each hospital has their own policy, has their own guideline. So we as parent organizations and even healthcare professionals struggle with these huge differences.
Absolutely. And I appreciate everything that you said, but I think the important message for all the healthcare professionals is to work in collaboration.
Definitely.
I think that's the solution that we can have. How can you bring parents together in units where they are not coming at the moment, but work in collaboration? How can you make that safe for everyone? So I think you kind of answered the question in the next question from coming from US. Would a COVID positive parent in the NICU be devastating to the whole unit?
Can you please repeat?
Would a COVID positive parent in the NICU be devastating to the whole unit?
So what, for example, and this comes up to a very good question of the single family rooms, because we often have the discussion as parents why we want or why we demand single family rooms. And when it comes to this pandemic, for example, and we have here in Germany, for example, in Berlin, in the Charité, we have this isolation rooms for any kind of infections. And what they have organized is that they have such an isolation room where a baby is there treated, and there is a family who has, or the mother has COVID. So here the family can be with their baby and be isolated as a family, but are able to be with their baby. And that is the challenges if you not have in any cases rooms where you can isolate a COVID mother with a baby and really have there an isolation situation. And this is something when you have, of course, only open bay units, then it's challenging, but you can, and there's never excuse not to do anything. What you can do then, of course, you can have a video camera system to support the mother. You can allow other family members or close friends to be with the baby, to kangaroo with the baby who are not COVID positive. So there are many, many opportunities where you can support the family and the grandparents, other family members who can be with the baby and send pictures and videos for the family to have somehow the feeling that they are together, even if there is an open bay situation and you have not an isolation room for such a situation. There's always a solution to help.
Absolutely. So now I want to go back a little bit to the campaign, because the campaign is going to be divided in 6 different areas. So tell us about those areas and why those areas.
So in general, the campaign is really looking on the zero separation and the kangaroo mother care situation. So that means the skin-to-skin care, the breastfeeding, the family as a bond, the bonding, that's the key area. The special areas where we want to focus on is, for example, lung health, because we know very well that our children are maybe not so much affected with the COVID, but our children have a very, very vulnerable lung because of the oxygen they get, the long time they are intubated maybe. And so therefore they have a high risk of getting RSV when the RSV season is coming, or maybe also the flu. And so therefore the lung of this tiny baby is key, especially in time of COVID, and not forgetting other infection because of focusing so much on COVID that we forget to take care of the lung infections our babies could get and really prevent and take care of this issue as well. Another area is the mental health aspects. As I mentioned before, the mental health for the parents, but also for the baby later in life is a key issue. And a long time of separation has an influence on mental health of the family and the baby later in life. We also will focus on breastfeeding and donor milk, because we know already that this very important nutrition aspect is a challenge in time of separation. And so therefore we want to focus here a lot on this area. We also want to look into the discharge and follow-up management, because we know from many parents all over the world that appointments, treatments, vaccinations, therapies are stopped totally in many cases. So many children are getting after discharge not the therapy or their treatment they would need. So because of the fear of getting an infection. There is also an area where we are not focusing at all at the moment, and these are the adult preterm infants, the consequences of them. I have a child who is now 23 years old and had a long time, was long time intubated intubated and had a BPD, and he is in high risk of getting COVID. So we have to take care and talk about the preterm infants who are now not in the NICU, but they challenge at the situation because of the people are not aware that these children or young adults are in high risk of COVID-19. So we have to take care of this. And a very big focus we also want to take on the fathers. So also you in Canada, you are struggling a lot, as I know, that fathers are of course allowed to go in the NICUs, but only the father or the mothers are allowed to go in the NICUs on one day. So why should fathers be treated like this, or partners, not only fathers, also partners and other family members? So what is the consequence for this families who are or have their children in times of COVID? That is the main focus areas we are speaking about this campaign till end of September next year.
Absolutely. That's so very important, all of them. But Silke, I wanted to focus a little bit on long-term impact, but I don't think we talk about that enough. And now, through this network, we've seen adults coming back as volunteers or running organizations all over the world that share their challenge throughout life of being born so early. So I wanted to share a little bit what it is. Your son is an adult now, 23 years old. You mentioned some of his challenges, but what are the real challenges, the long-term impacts that we don't talk about? Usually we talk about, the BPD and the lungs, but there's so many other aspects of the NICU and board so early did for these children, and how do they live a life after? Do we keep sharing healthcare professions? I was born a premature. School. So what can you tell us about this long-term impact as a lived experience of a mom of an adult now?
What I can really share is an experience that it is a really long and often very challenging journey. So it depends really what your child had in the very first weeks and months of life. So if there was a brain bleeding, if they had a BPD, or if they had an ROP, so if the eyes are affected, if the lung was affected, and how the development was then afterwards, or the discharge management was organized. And what was really a luck for Lucas, sometimes we joke if it was really a luck, is that my husband and I are both preschool teachers. So therefore he had, of course, a lot of support in the first years. And even today, he has a lot of support, because he would not go to university today if he would not get so many therapies and support. And we live in a rich area where everything is available. So we are in a very lucky situation. But if you are living in the countryside where you have not access to all these therapies or follow-up, or you have not parents who know where to go when you have a challenge, so this is a problem. And when it comes to COVID, for example, that is really a problem. What many parents of preterm, I would say toddlers, children, or adults have, is that they don't know how much it affects them. So that is, if the children had an intubation where a long time or not got a long time oxygen, so that means that they are in high risk of not getting the COVID, but having finally, if they get it, a much more severe impact of this infection. And that's the really risk for this parents and the children. And because the lung of these tiny babies has a consequence later in life for most of them. If you had, for example, an ROP and you would need checkups, how do you handle this in time of COVID? Do you get an appointment? If yes, how should I organize it? Do I risk myself more to go to this appointment as to become blind or a severe sight problems? And so when it comes to university or school or kindergarten, should I send my child to kindergarten, to school, or even to university? Should I really send them to use the public transportation? So I can only share my own experience that Lucas is 23 years old, a young adult, of course, and can take his decision himself. But we had a crisis discussion in the beginning of the pandemic to agree that Lucas is not going to university, even before everything was organized in Germany. He's not allowed to take public transportation. When he meets with friends, still today, and we have a better situation now with not really a lockdown. He's only allowed to go and meet them if both wear masks, just to reduce the risk of getting an infection. And so to be in a social community, being the ones who always need an excuse, that also is a problem with, in the end, peer connections, social connections. And this is for him really a challenge. And so we as a family still suffer today, and especially in this time of COVID, to be so isolated because no one really should come and visit us. And that is a big difference to many, many other families who have not a child who was born preterm. And we take it very serious. And many people say, oh, you're still this preemie mom. Why you are still so, he's a young adult, he goes to university. Why are you like this? They have no idea why I am like I am and why we are taking care so much that Lucas gets not COVID, just to be aware, because we don't know how he would develop in the end, this infection. So therefore, yes, it is a big challenge, and it will for sure be a challenge more or less lifelong.
Absolutely. And you mentioned so many important points, but one is like also now the families were getting discharged from hospitals, going through their first winter here for us who lives in the North Hemisphere. And you know, a lot of follow-up appointments being canceled, some of them being happening online. So we don't know what's going to happen in the fall. So I think the campaign is very important to address periods after the discharge, because all of us as NICU parents, we already take extra care during the winter months, especially the first few years. But now we add this extra layer of stress to all the families, because now is a virus that we're still learning about, and we don't know if there will be a second wave in the fall. So how is this campaign going to be important for that aspect? So on the discharge and follow-up appointments.
Yes, this campaign really brings up many, many aspects where I guess the majority of the people who even know preterm babies very well and their challenges haven't thought about it. And so what we have learned in the last weeks when we have developed the campaign and also the messages about these focus topics of lung and the RSV infection or the flu vaccination, is this really necessary? So where we found many, many experts who said, oh, well, Mrs. Mader, good that you ask about this. This is what we haven't thought about it so far. So we have to develop here a guideline or a guidance for our experts in the countryside, so that the parents, but also the healthcare professionals are aware there are many, many preterm infants or preterm adults, teenagers out who are not really, really proper informed. And so these are topics where we definitely have learned in the last weeks, because all our critical questions to healthcare professionals, societies were warmly welcomed. And it was not that they saw us at a very critical organization who are now putting the finger in the wound, so they are happy. We also have 145 organizations supporting the campaign, and also the WHO, so the World Health Organization, has given us 3 statements. Save the Children is supporting us, Plan, many of the big organizations are joining and giving also from the presidents a quote, so that we can go out and they're standing behind us. And this is also what I want to mention, that we not want to work against healthcare professionals. It is important to combine forces to stand up together. That zero separation means not only a welcoming policy in visiting the baby, it is really a complex topic with a huge outcome in the end if you not follow them. Because can you imagine, and we know this from the 70s and the 60s, where parents were not allowed at all to see their babies, what consequences it had. And we know that many of them struggle lifelong because of not having a bonding with the parents not see their babies or children as theirs. So that are many aspects we have to take into account before we really have a policy of separation. We know that this is not everywhere possible, and we have not single family rooms everywhere in the world, but there's always an opportunity and a solution as much as we can. And so this is why we think zero separation has to be seen as much more complex as only visiting. It is really the aspect of kangaroo care, skin to skin care, of breastfeeding, of the bonding aspect, of the voice of the mother, of the smell, so of the odor of the mother. So there are many, many aspects where we know that this has an impact on the brain development of this child. And even the sepsis and the infection rates are going down if the families, or especially the mother, takes care of the child.
Absolutely. Even for the family integrated care study show that baby spend less time in the hospital when parents are present. There's so much more to it. Still, we have one more question coming here. Do you have a list of these alternatives to achieve zero separation? You mentioned before having technology or extended family coming to visit the baby. Is this campaign going to offer those recommendations as well as alternatives to keep parents connected with the baby?
Yes, we have, of course, alternatives, but the first question should be, what can I do to offer in the end the family access to this baby and the baby to the family? And so what are solutions to provide access to this baby? And this is something where we have to ask each of us ourselves, what can I do to make this possible? So what kind of equipment, mask, gloves, is necessary. In many East European countries, there is not even access to this equipment for the healthcare professionals. So here, many of the parent organizations have collected money to provide this kind of equipment to the hospitals, or also to sew in the end mask that the parents can be somehow with the baby. And if it is not possible because you have an open bay, you can organize it in shifts. So that means 3 hours this parent, 3 hours the next parent, and so that you have in each room one parent, and they really share in the end the time shifts, what can be possible. So this must be always the first solution, like breastfeeding is the first solution to provide the best nutrition. And so as a second solution or alternatives, here are many aspects what can be done, and we also will offer this in the campaign, like the video streaming, but there is also a question if you can financially afford this, or you can provide on a cotton tissue the smell of the mother, so that the mother wears it under the t-shirt or in her bra, and so the smell is available. But there are also hygiene aspects have to be taken into account, because if the mother is positive, then it's a challenge to provide this, because there are also infections could be transported. So therefore, mainly in the end, a video or recording of the voice is possible. But again, first of all, how can you provide in the end any kind of access for the mother and the father, because the father is also important to support the mother, and don't underestimate the consequences of fathers when they not see the parents. We know very well from a study which was done years ago in Germany, that fathers who are really in the stress situation of getting a preterm infant have the same stress signs as the veterans from the Vietnam War. So therefore, don't underestimate this big rocks as men, that they not have feelings and not can have in the end stress factors and can influence their health as well.
Absolutely. We actually interview a psychiatrist here who specializes in fathers' mental health, and he talked about the higher level of PTSD for fathers who experience the NICU. Silke, we have one more question coming here. How do we persuade healthcare professionals who don't have a strong belief or are reluctant towards parental involvement to move to zero separation? I hear many excuses why parents can't be on the unit for long periods.
Yeah, this is what our daily job is, to be very honest, to try to convince people or to motivate them to change their minds. What we have learned in the last years, when I started becoming first of all the president of the German parent organization, that they always told me, "Oh, Mrs. Mader, you have to show the evidence." And so in the meanwhile, I'm worse often than the healthcare professionals to say, "Show me the evidence." And so this is what I do at the moment with the COVID pandemic separation, to say, "Show me the evidence. evidence why this is really a risk factor. And this is really true because we can show tons of evidence in the meanwhile why it is important to have a zero separation policy, and why in the end kangaroo mother care can really increase the health of this tiny baby. And we know that the infection rates are going down, the sepsis rates are going down, the neck rates are going down. These are hard facts, and there are meta-analyses. So not only small surveys from parents' opinions, there are huge surveys going out, meta-analyses, Cochrane reviews, hard evidence, where you can show that this is really a benefit. It's a benefit of the health outcome, and it's a financial benefit because of the reduction of the length of the stay, but also the long-term outcome because of having less neck, less sepsis, less work in the end for healthcare professionals because of this issue. And know that there are many healthcare professionals out who are very critical about it. On the other side, we have also sometimes parents, and I also be transparent with parents we have also in our community, they go with fever into the NICUs because they want to see their baby, because they think this is their right. And this is also work what we have to as parent organizations and parent representatives to provide information and the right information for parents to make them aware if they come with a COVID infection and don't share this with the others, and come with a fever or any kind of other hygiene aspects. We have to train the parents to be aware on it. And so therefore, yes, it is of course work to train them, but when we know in the meanwhile that in the end nurses and doctors have less work if parents are the main caregiver, then they have less stress, and also the work is much nicer. This is also what we can show with evidence, that staff are more satisfied if everything works in the end. Then we have in the end less people who leave a NICU because of the stress situation in the nurses and the doctors community. And so this is what we have to take account. What I always do is show the evidence, and there is tons of evidence. And in the campaign, we will develop infographics with the research background. We have a lot of references, the benefits, the long-term benefits, the short-term, and also why zero separation really matters.
Absolutely. That's wonderful, Silke. We are very looking forward to the launch of this campaign. But you also shared with me last week when you were chatting a very good example that you came across recently. Please share with us and give us some hope.
Yes, that's a pleasure for me. And so what I would like to share with you is an example of Norway. So many of you know the Nordic countries in Europe as the ones who have a family-centered care philosophy. They have a 24/7 philosophy for many years. They're welcome, they have skin-to-skin care. But in time of COVID, it was really a challenge in Norway, where they had a 24/7 policy already for many years implemented, where fathers were not allowed at all to enter the NICU. And so we are close in contact with the parent organization and also some healthcare professionals who are working on this family-centered care approaches, and they ask us of advice. And what we have learned, that one of our chairs, Dr. Atle Mohn, he is working at the Oslo University Hospital and was before the chief doctor of the Drammen Hospital in close by Oslo. And he has published an article in Acta Pediatrica to show that parents look like there would be medication, so there would be a drug. And so he was also giving, because of this publication, an interview in the press and media in Norway, and he was asked how the situation is, and he criticized quite heavily the situation that, because he's a man also, he also was then criticizing that fathers have no access at all. There is no evidence behind, so it's not acceptable that mothers be lonely in the end in the situation, and fathers have also right of access to their baby and should be welcomed and should be not treated like different to the mother. So he had this really great success that this was everywhere published all over Norway. And just a week later, all over Norway, they have started to welcome fathers and mothers 24/7 in the NICUs. And so this is a very nice example of how things can change. Or also in Ireland, we have this. Our colleague Mandy Daly has started with a campaign, 15 minutes is not enough, and which is true. What is the evidence of 15 minutes? And she has started also there campaigning, standing up, not producing a lot of friends, to be honest, but she was very tough, and she is always very tough. And so she has started this, and she's also successful. And in the meanwhile, a couple of hours per day, parents can be there, and she's still ongoing with fighting, and we hope we can help her with the Zero Separation campaign as well.
Absolutely. Silke, our time is almost done, but I would like you to share one last thought with everyone watching us here today. And you're definitely going to come back because you have so much more to talk about throughout the campaign. So can you hear me?
About the campaign, yes. So my last thought is that we hope that all over the world, people understand why zero separation has no evidence, and even we have so that we really have a change in mind, and that after the pandemic, we continue to think about zero separation, and that we hopefully in the next years can somehow delete this thinking of the separation and welcome parents 24/7 wherever the situation it allows. And also when another pandemic, what we all not hope, will come again, that we are better prepared, that in the future separation is not even a topic anymore. That's what I hope, and I hope that many people join. And so please join us on the 9th of July and share your stories, share your opinions, share our materials in 27 languages. We have everything available, and latest on the 8th of July, you can download this on our website.
All right, that's wonderful. So thank you so much for doing this work. You are always an inspiration to me and to so many others doing this work all over the world. So I really appreciate your time for being here with us today, and I see you again very soon.
Thank you very much, and thank you for inviting me and giving me here the opportunity to talk to you.
Thank you. And thank you everyone for watching us here today. As I mentioned at the beginning, we are doing Facebook Lives twice a week, Monday and Fridays, 1 p.m. Eastern time. And on Friday, we are going to be talking about the situation right here in Canada. I'm interviewing Dr. Luis Monterosa. He's a neonatologist from New Brunswick, and he's being advocate with a group of other neonatologists to change the way the policies are in the hospitals right now with regards to parental presence in the NICU. And on Wednesday, Kate Robson, who is a psychotherapist and also a mom of 2 preemie girls, is hosting a real-time peer support group. And to access her group, you can join the Canadian Premature Parent Support Network, which is our private Facebook group. And all Facebook Lives that I've been doing since the beginning of the pandemic are recorded and available on our website. And you can access that on canadianpremis.org. Thank you and be well.